Every game on the board for Saturday, December 5th. Guys, welcome to the Pre-Scout. I am Andrew McInnis, and we are on WagerTalk TV, the same place we are every single weeknight. And, of course, we are diving into every game on the board for Saturday, as we do every week. Cannot wait to go over it. We got a great guest for you guys today. We have Jonathan Davis with us. If you guys aren't following him on Twitter, you're missing out. Not just sides, not just totals, but props as well. You can find him on VSIN. You can find him on satellite radio. You can find him at all kinds of spots. And we'll make sure we promote a lot of the stuff that he does, a lot of great work. But we were talking for a few minutes before the show started and just kind of talking hockey. And the great part about these shows, as you guys know, there's going to be some games we have more to say about than others. But maybe we'll just talk hockey on some of those games. We might not have our picks aside. And, of course, a few teams playing front half of back-to-backs. We might not know the goaltender information, of course, or the results of the games on Friday. We are recording this about late afternoon Eastern time on Friday evening. But without further ado, Jonathan Davis, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing great. Pleasure. I'm looking forward to this. Saturdays are always they're challenging from for what we do, and you're trying to dissect and go through all the different ways to attack a game. So yeah, I mean it's one of those head splitters for me that Friday night I start and then kind of finish things up early Saturday morning. It's one of the downsides of being on the West Coast, I will say, because I'm usually up by around 5 a.m. because I'm trying to get stuff, I'm trying to prep, and especially with a 9, we have a 12:30 Eastern start on Saturday, 9:30 Pacific. So it is one of the downsides. It's always nice when the games finish at 10 p.m. as opposed to 1 a.m. But sometimes those early starts, it definitely it's one of the guilty pleasures of this business. It's we don't have to work; we get to watch hockey.
We get to watch the game we love and talk about it, and hopefully make some picks on it that come out our way. When it comes to the time zone, I get in so many debates every single year about this, which time zone's best. And you're right, there's pros and cons. The side that I will give you the edge for is that tonight, when all the games are over, you don't have to wait until midnight or 1 a.m. before you start handicapping. You can, you're handicapping them at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So maybe the games are starting early in the morning for you on Saturday, but you can also handicap at a normal time. Because one problem that I deal with that I've been trying to get better at is that I'm a watcher and I'm a diehard hockey fan. Sometimes I'll have my laptop, my phone, and I'm looking at the games for the next day when I'm watching certain games. But for the most part, I don't really like to start handicapping the next day until today is done. And a lot of times for me, today isn't done until 1 a.m. In my time zone. So that's a bit tough. Before we jump into Saturday's slate, just want to ask you, your thoughts overall on the season, the competitive nature of the parity right now in the NHL, and maybe give folks a little bit of an idea of how you handicap games and a little bit about you. As I mentioned off the top, I see you posting a lot of nice plus money props, which I love, but tell us a bit about yourself.
All right. So I've been covering the game for almost 4 decades now, which is not bad since I'm only 42. So, that's worked out. I started at a very young age, but I've been handicapping games probably pretty heavily for about the last 10 years, and joined VSIN, Sports Betting Network, about 2 years. It's my second season with them, but so from a standpoint of how I attack games, there's so many different ways, and what I love about what we do, Andrew, is that the wealth of information that people like you and I share. The betting community, I think we're all out to help each other with information because we all want to make money, and I think that's key. But there are a lot of different ways that I will attack a game. I'm one that is big on head-to-head matchups, not just team versus team, Andrew, player versus goalie. That's one thing for me that I tend to focus on a lot. So you'll find that little nugget out there where you've got someone that may play deeper down in the lineup, but has just had great success against the goalie. Here's another way I'll attack it. You can look at a team's home and road record. Like Thursday night, Columbus playing Detroit. Columbus's record, I think they were 500 at home coming into the game against Detroit. But Andrew, they were 5-1 as a home favorite and 0-4 as a home dog. So I think that's something that I break things down. In my spreadsheets, I track every team: home favorite, home dog, road favorite, road dog, because the home and road record is less important to me. It's more about how they do in those situational spots. And then the other thing that I started this year that's been a big thing for me is players score the first goal, but not so much to score the first goal of the game, but to score the first goal for his team. And FanDuel is one of the sites that offers that prop, and it's been very profitable for me. Here's an example, like Morgan Geekie of Boston, and they play. They're one of the games on Saturday. Actually, they face the Devils and Timo Meyer. Meyer's another guy who's been a first goal scorer. But in Geekie's case, he's got like 9 of his first 17 goals open the scoring for Boston. And when Boston was in town, Andrew, they were in LA. I asked both Marco Sturm and Meyer and Geekie, were you aware of how many times you would score the first goal? Because actually the game that night, he had scored Boston's first goal. Didn't come till the third period, and neither of them were aware of it. But that's a prop that I've attacked. I think in Meyer's case, 6 of his 10 goals, they're not only the first Devils goal, they're the first goal of the game.
Wow.
So that's another, those are things that I've been looking at and attacking when it comes to player props. And I have changed my philosophy about player props and looking at plus money. I would rather, try to, Andy Francis is another guy. I'm sure you're familiar with Andy, but he's a guy that does a really good job of, doing, stacking players on a line, or looking for a guy on the first line and maybe the defenseman on the first power play. I've kind of, moved to that approach as well. I would rather find a plus money prop than playing 2 guys that maybe a short minus number. And then, if I split, I lose. So I'd rather take the plus money. So I've been very big on attacking those plus money props.
And West Coast Hockey, right? HKY
Yes.
on X.
Yeah, I couldn't afford the other letters. It's
they only give you so much space. So guys, make sure you give them a follow. West Coast Hockey, HKY, all kinds of great picks there. And always recapping and talking about the wins and the losses, as of course we always talk about, is so important in the business. And Morgan Geekie, what a story he is. We could talk about him for a whole podcast, but we have a lot to get to. Let's jump into our first game of the day here. Let's talk about the Islanders and the Avalanche, the Rangers and the Avalanche. The Islanders and the Avalanche already played a game. That was something we can talk about as well. But overall, this Avalanche team has been an absolute wagon this year. Nathan McKinnon, I'm a huge fan, being an East Coaster, but this team has so much more than just McKinnon. Makar, I think sometimes isn't even talked about enough because of having players like McKinnon on his team. It's very rare to see this Avalanche team off a loss at all these days. How do you approach this game?
Well, I think the way that I'll attack Colorado, probably in regulation in this game here. I don't see them losing back-to-back. You've got a Rangers team, well documented how they struggle at home as opposed to on the road. So I would look for Colorado in regulation. I haven't had a chance to look at the numbers of, how some of these guys have done against Shesterkin. So I'll have something out later, early on Saturday morning. But I would look to Colorado here in regulation. I think it's a good spot for them against the Rangers team that, not very good at home.
That road and home split has been so weird. And it's not just like wins, losses. It's just overall production, confidence. It just looks like a different team on the road versus at home. And, I was talking to a Senators fan yesterday because you feel bad for fans when this happens, but a lot of times a team gets back at home after a huge road trip, especially a successful road trip. And of course, the Senators had that win over the Canadiens. Then they go back home and, they lose to the Rangers. And it's like, hey guys, we're back, to all the fans. And then you lose in front of your home crowd. And the Rangers were plus 120 in that one.
They opened up at plus 130. It got bet down to about plus 110. That was one of my favorite plays. That was my favorite play of the day. yesterday was the Rangers, or on Thursday, the Rangers money line. It was that to me was one of those schedule losses, as you talked about. Ottawa coming back 7 games on the road in 15 days, just brutal. And a Rangers rested team. Yeah, that was one that I loved. And hey, look, teams are going to have it. We saw that earlier in the year, a couple of weeks ago when Edmonton came back from that grueling road trip and played Dallas, and it just got absolutely steamrolled. I mean, it was 4-0 before you had a chance to really get comfortable, and those 4 goals scored, I think, combined 10 feet apart. So yeah, that was just a bad spot for Ottawa.
You got to feel bad for fans when it comes to that. They're just waiting for their team to get home. One part of my handicap that I really fell in love with last year, I'll admit, hasn't been as great for me this year. But Washington Capitals, if I liked them a couple days ago on Wednesday night, take the team total over. Edmonton off a game where they were shut out against Minnesota, against Seattle, team total over. And I'm a big fan of limiting the juice, right? Same thing for the player props, right? As you mentioned. Like, if I think a player has a good chance and a good matchup for shots on goal, I'd rather take him for 3+ versus 2+, or 4+ versus 3 at the plus price. Just like yourself, this isn't a plus price, but I lean towards Rangers under 2.5 goals. We all know how good of a team offensively the Avalanche are. People might not talk about their defensive ability as well, and they're coming off a game where they will not be happy about their defensive performance. So the funny thing is the Avalanche still produce a little bit themselves, but they did give up a ton of goals. So slight lean for me on the team total underplay for the New York Rangers. We'll see if that trend continues for the home ice split, we'll call it, for them versus when they're on the road. Columbus and Florida. Florida Panthers, of course, the defending 2-time Stanley Cup champions. But man, oh man, Jonathan, it's been a different season for this team. And Columbus, we got to tip our hat to this team. They're never out of a hockey game. They are never out of a hockey game. And I'm impressed with Adam Fantilli tying it up late. That game against Detroit was an unbelievable watch. What stands out to here? I'm seeing a current number of -160, 155.
Yeah, I could never lay that price with the Florida Panthers in the state that they're in right now. So for me, if you're looking at a money line play, the value is there absolutely with the Blue Jackets. They have not been. I mean, look, you take a look at them on the road. They're 6-8 as a road dog this year. So pretty respectable. I mean, 7-8 overall. The value's there with Columbus. They're a much different team with Kirill Marchenko back in the lineup. We saw that on Wednesday night or on Thursday night. Marchenko back in there. You can't bet. Like, I could never bet Florida. I can't bet them right now in their current state. So for me, it would definitely be Columbus or bust. And to your point, the team totals are a great way to go for, the past 2 seasons, for instance. The Tampa Bay Lightning, when they won, they scored at least 4 goals in 75% of their wins. So that's something that that I would look at as I definitely pay attention to. I love that approach you're talking about. And in the case of Florida, I mean, look, they've been leaky. Outside of the Nashville game 2 nights ago, I mean, Bob has been torched of late. He's given up, I think, 4 goals, and I think it's 5 of 7 lately, or 3 goals. So I would even consider, depending on who the goalie is, I would consider the Columbus team total, if you can get that at over 2.5 at a decent price, or if it's a little juicy for you, BetMGM offers over 3. So I think that's the way. Maybe it was another way to approach the Blue Jackets if you want to take them.
I like that. Then you're just betting on the offense, and you're not betting on the result or exactly how it goes. Florida, by my records here, looking at Money Puck, love using this website. Last 10 games, 5-on-5, 11th worst in expected goals against. So maybe their offensive numbers have been okay, but they're giving up a ton of chances as well. So do you think that these price tags kind of continue to be what they are because they're the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions?
Yeah, I think the Panthers are getting overvalued for sure. I mean, and I didn't have the stones to take Nashville on Thursday. I wish I did. If you had parlayed the Dogs went 6-0 to start the night on Thursday and 8-2 overall.
Crazy night. Crazy night.
a crazy night. But yes, Florida is still getting overpriced. The value is with Columbus, but I would look at their team total on Saturday against the Panthers because I think you can get and see if I haven't seen if there is a number there that's offered, but that would be the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, Columbus over 2.5. I'm seeing it -140. So if you want to go to BetMGM, I'm thinking you're going to get them at a plus money at over 3. That may be the way to go if you don't
And
want to pay that loose.
over 3, I like that. And the inconsistency level of this Florida team as well. I almost don't want to have anything to do with them until they show it to me for a couple of games. It's kind of like the Maple Leafs. Like I as a Habs fan, I love to hate on the Maple Leafs, but they showed it to us for a couple of games. Maybe they're back, but you got to wait a few games to see it from them first.
Well, right, but if I think it's then it's really jumping against Florida. That's what you're looking at because that's where the value is. Play against the Panthers, and again, whether it's a team total for their opposition or just playing the opposition as a straight up money line dog.
This is a team. Do you think that they have no issue of making their way into the playoffs, avoiding the wild card? What do you think? I mean, the East is so competitive this year. What do you think we're talking about when we're talking about if you and I chat again in, let's say, January, February, what's the deal with the Panthers, do you think?
Well, I mean, look, there's value. I think you can get them at plus 190 to miss the playoffs. It's not worth it. It's not bad to grab plus money for them to miss. Banged up on the back end with Forsling out. Obviously, we're not going to see Kachuk until probably the end of December. In an ultra, you just can't keep giving away points, and maybe the run is gone for Florida, and the fact that they deciding not to put Barkov on LTIR, which meant that he couldn't play right, in the playoffs as well. I understand it, and maybe for Florida, hey, look, they're playing with house money, so
yeah,
for them making the playoffs is really look. Obviously, these guys want to be back. They want a three-peat. You heard them talk about it. Totally believe they want to, but from a betting standpoint, the value is there to take the plus money for them to miss.
And now we're seeing the other team in the Sunrise, state that said, "Hey, hold on, don't forget about us." And both Florida teams have just been so good the past couple of years. I mean, they got the nice weather and they got good hockey teams. The Lightning and the Panthers doing really well. And the way you said the house money, at least they have excuses built in. No Barkov, no Kachuk. Not to mention they won back-to-back cups. What's the Oilers' excuse? That's a whole different topic of conversation. We'll get to that down the line here on the show.
But just to throw something in on Tampa,
yes,
I put in a 10-1 bet on John Cooper for Coach of the Year because look, if Utah or Anaheim make it, it's going to be Tournier or Quenneville if they make the playoffs. There's no question. But there's no value to me for Quenneville at plus 195. I think John Cooper has done his best coaching job ever. I mean, they're missing their top 3 blue liners. They're missing Braden Point. And here they are. They started the month of November, last in the Atlantic, and now they've climbed to first. So for me, there's value, a lot of value, I think, with John Cooper at 10-1 for Coach of the Year.
I think he's showing right now that he wasn't just a coach with a good team always. Right. He's a really good coach. So it's been really good to see. All right, Jonathan, unfortunately, our next game that we have to talk about is our first situation of a team with the front half of a back-to-back. We're talking about the Devils. So, of course, we're not recording this after we get results from Friday night, but maybe we'll just be quick on this one. But overall, your outlook on their game on Saturday. I'm not seeing any odds here at most books. Jersey and Boston. Any kind of outlook for you on this one?
I mean, look, for me, if it's a Bruins game, we talked about it off the top, it's Morgan Geekie to score a goal. And, and the other one it's still got really good value. Played him on Thursday night is Alex Steves, who's on the top line. He was plus 550 on Thursday night to score an anytime goal. You can get that type of number for a guy on the top line. I'll continue to take it. So he's another guy that I would look at. The Devils, such a different team without Jack Hughes. Still missing Pesci, although I think, he's been skating. He's probably closer to returning. I'm not interested in betting either side. This for me would just be a prop filled game.
Yeah, good player prop game. Good call with that.
Yeah.
Good player prop game, especially with the back-to-back situation. Uh, one thing I'll say that I've looked at a lot, and good follow. I'm sure you've seen him, Chris Otto at PSU Auto. He does a lot of great work. He talks a lot about, you fade a team in the second half of back-to-back if they won the front half. But if they lost, maybe you are inclined to want to take them. And as a Canadiens fan, they looked horrible Tuesday night against the Ottawa Senators, and they put together a much better effort in the second half of the back-to-back against Winnipeg. So I always say to people, look, these guys are professional athletes. Let's not act like they're completely out of gas because they have to play 2 games in 48 hours here. Like the back-to-back angle kind of gets a little bit overblown, but I think there is that angle of if a team is coming off a 5-1 win and they're playing back-to-back, maybe they don't care as much about game 2. So the results, maybe we'll have to look at what the Devils do tonight, and we can kind of read the game based on that. But the Blues, I have them as one of the teams that'll be the first sellers. I mean, the Blues and the Preds, those two teams, they're going to start selling off some guys here. Looking at the matchup for them tomorrow, I just wanted to mention, I like to look towards last 10 games, 5-on-5, 10th worst team in expected goals for. Not only has their defense been bad, and hate to say it, Binnington's not having a great season in the goaltending department. They just can't score right now. You got an Ottawa Senators team, as we talked about, kind of had a little bit of a dud, the scheduled loss. I like that saying you said. I've heard that a lot more lately against the Rangers. Are you inclined to back Ottawa now after that home loss?
Yeah, well, I can't back the Blues. And it's funny. One of my friends was with the Blues executives the night that Binnington got yanked from the game, and said to him, he goes, "You better check your phone because I'm sure you're getting calls from the Oilers and the Carolina Hurricanes right now, wondering what you get for Binnington." Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard. I can't back St. Louis. I think it is a good spot for Ottawa. They're right now. I'm seeing that about a -145, -150. This is a rematch of a game that these two teams met not long ago. The Blues won that game 4-3 back on the 28th. Ottawa struggled with Brady Tkachuk back in the lineup. It was I was been waiting for a reporter before Tkachuk got it back in for someone to say to Travis Green, tongue firmly planted in cheek, but do you really change a winning lineup? How do you let Brady back in there? But no, I think this is the spot to grab Ottawa. I know the Blues have won, 4 of the last 5 against these two teams, or with these two teams, but it is very hard for me to back them. Now, remember, Ottawa fans, you did go with Merrill in that game against the Rangers. Not that Ullmark has been, it looks like, the Vezina Trophy goalie, but I would expect Ullmark to be in goal, and I'll take my chances with Ottawa at home to St. Louis on Saturday.
He's looking a lot better too, Ullmark. He's looking steady. Rebound control is pretty good. So, nothing against Merrill, but I love that rapid revenge spot. I do. And the funny thing is, you'll hear people talk about revenge, and I'm sure you're the same as me with this, Jonathan, where it's like, well, these teams played last year in April on the 13th. It's like, okay, nobody cares about last year. But when it's the last few weeks, as you mentioned, that's when it really matters, right? It's like recently in these guys' heads. And it's not only the Ottawa Senators coming off a loss, but they're coming off a relatively recent loss against said team. So, and this Blues team, we could say the Blues are going to be angered with a 5-2 loss against the Bruins. But what the hell does that mean, the Blues being angered? Does that even mean anything to us?
No, hey, by the way, it was Merrill that played in that 4-3 Blues victory in St. Louis. Ullmark's won 4 of his last 5 starts. And, his numbers have been pretty decent, as you mentioned. I mean, the loss against Dallas, which was the game 6 of that 7-game road trip. I mean, I think the Senators kind of hung him out to dry that night.
100%. And they're going to want to get back on track. So, and just looking at these numbers overall for the Ottawa Senators, when they do have success, a lot of times they do reach that magical number of 4. I always talk about the team totals, so it might be a good idea to look towards the team totals. Guys, once again, West Coast Hockey at West Coast HKY. All right, we ran out of numbers, ran out of letters there, ran out of space. Make sure you follow Jonathan on X for all his picks, all his information. VSIN, and I love VSIN. Great group there. I've been on a few times, and the studio is not bad either. Inside Circa, you gotta love that. So
yeah, I just came back from there yesterday. It was
by
the way, to your point about Ottawa, 9 of their 13 wins, they have scored 4 goals or more.
It seems like life is either great for them or it's not so good. They don't really have a lot of medium level games. It's
no, because 10 of their 14 losses they've given up 4 goals or more.
Yeah, it's one or the other with them. It's one or the other with that team. Guys, again, make sure you hit the like button on this video. We're working hard with these every game on the board videos. Jonathan, sometimes I'm just talking 2, 3, maybe 4 games on these shows, but Saturday we want to give the audience as many games as possible. So guys, if you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button and comment. Let myself know, let Jonathan know who you are betting on the Saturday slate. We're very curious what you guys have on your cards as well. All right, the Islanders and Tampa. We were talking about Coach John Cooper. I'll tell you what, though, this Islanders team, I used to call them boring. I used to call this team, if you want to take a nap while watching a hockey game, just toss on a New York Islanders game. This team is way better. This team is looking like a lot more of an exciting team. The New York Islanders can actually produce some fun games to watch. How do you feel they stack up in this game?
I think, one. I mean, I think the 6 goals that they scored against the Colorado Avalanche on Thursday night, I think that equaled their output for about the past 4 or 5 games. They were really struggling to find the back of the net before that game. For Tampa, they've been on quite a run until they got upset by the Penguins at home. So I would expect a bounce back game from them for sure. I've got I'm trying to find where's the value in playing this game, and I'm still not sure. Other than look, Brandon Hagel to score a goal. I mean that's been and to score the Tampa first goal of the game. He's done that 6 or 7 times this year. He scored the Lightning's first goal. 18 goals, I think, in 17 in his last 17 games, or 17 in his last 18 after not scoring in his first 8 games. So look, the Islanders, beat Tampa. The Islanders beat Tampa 2-1 a couple of days ago. Second time in 4 days, and they're going to play 3 times in 12 days. So they're going to be quite sick of each other. But I look at the last couple of matchups in Tampa, and I mean the Lightning have won 3 of the 4, and they've scored at least 4 goals in each of those victories. I'm always one. I mentioned to you earlier, Tampa's propensity to score 4 or more in a win hasn't been as good this year, but generally that's been the way to play them. I'll probably look at Tampa to score team total over 3.5.
Love that. And you know what? Could be a really, really good player prop game for some of these Tampa Bay guys. It's kind of funny just the way it worked out. Of course, I'm going in rotation order. We got 2 rapid revenge spots. I saw you going through it, and I could hear you getting to it. And it's like, well, these 2 teams know each other, and they're going to get to know each other a bit more. The 2-1 result, would you argue in that game? I looked at some of the stats there. That game that they had, the loss 2-1 against the Isles, that game probably should have had more goals. I think they ran into a hot goalie. They ran into a team that maybe was just shutting them down, but that game easily could have been 4-3, 5-4. I think that was one of those games with just 2 good goalies. Yeah,
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't remember that one as specifically. But look, anytime that the goaltending with the Islanders has definitely been a lot better than I think it was last year. I mean, I think that more reliable with David Riddick back there, which still is shocking to me. But he's done a solid job for them. And in Tampa's case, I'm interested to see, are they going to roll back with Vasilevsky? Because Jonas Johansson's been getting a few more starts than I thought he would so far.
It kind of reminds me of the situation that Winnipeg's dealing with right now with Comrie. Like, I think Comrie's had more starts in the last 2 weeks than he has in the last 3 years of his career. Like, they just never would put that guy in. Hellebuck was playing like 78 games a season, it seemed like.
Well, but Comrie as a backup was super. I mean, his numbers were decent. I mean, but this is where, it has been tough sledding. Although that game against Montreal may have been the best game that Eric Comrie's played in quite some time. And I think back to, I think it was a save on Demidov a couple of minutes before Winnipeg ended up scoring that late goal in the first period. But that was a game for Eric Comrie that he and the Jets have to feel a lot better about themselves.
And it's funny how things work out that way because, I listen to all the press conferences for the Canadiens, and Martin St. Louis sometimes will say, we played better, or our goaltender played better in this game yesterday in which we lost, and yet we won today and we didn't play that great. Well, Eric Comrie, he had an unbelievable game for them and they end up losing that one. And there's been some games where he was okay and they won it. So that's just hockey for you. All right, we're keeping it going with the revenge spots. This isn't as much of rapid revenge, but it pretty much is. You've got the logo on your chest right now. I bleed blue, blanc, and rouge with the Montreal Canadiens, but the Leafs, they're starting to get their act together a bit more. This game does take place at Scotiabank Arena. The current number I'm seeing, opener was minus 139, Pinnacle 124, nothing from Circa yet. Bet online minus 130. Average price seems to be 130, 135 here. Is this one of those spots where, hey, the Leafs are saying, you know what, you guys beat us and we didn't have Matthew Nyes, we didn't have Austin Matthews, we're ready to flex our muscles? Or do you think this number is a little bit cheap? Like, even though the Habs have injuries as well, this almost stood out to me as kind of a fishy number here as it's adjusting to 130. I feel like they're looking at the Habs and saying, this is close to a neutral site, a pick 'em here. Am I wrong?
Well, I see. Okay, fishy to me was last night's Minnesota Calgary game.
I had Calgary.
That was a fishy line. Like, that was one where it was either, and I didn't bet Calgary, but it was either Calgary or pass for me. Like, the fact that game opened up at minus 120, even though it was Philip Gustafson and not Jesper Wallstedt, it was still a very fishy line. This one I would say no, only because it's they know that it's Dennis Hildeby, or it's likely to be Dennis Hildeby that gets the start. I mean, I think that even if Wall didn't get hurt against Carolina on Thursday, I think this was going to be a Hildeby start anyways. So no, I don't think it's a fishy line. The Leafs are in a better spot, as you referenced. I mean, they're playing much better hockey. Hildeby's doesn't look like a deer in the headlights like he did when he came up last year. But here's my favorite play. It's Toronto to score the first goal of the game, and if you want to get greedy, you can play Toronto first goal, first period. Jakub Dobeš has started 29 games in his NHL career. The opposition has scored first in 21 of them.
Wow. And the Montreal Canadiens, they went through a tough streak lately where they weren't just giving up a goal early. They were giving up a goal in the first shot that they faced. They went through, I think, 4 straight games between Monty and Dobeš with a goal in the first shot. Wow. That is some hard-hitting stuff right there. Okay, well, Dobeš, he's the goalie now for the Canadiens. I defended Montembeault as long as I could with other fans, but when it comes down to it, Dobeš is the guy. He is the number one goaltender, and he played pretty well against Winnipeg. When it comes down to it, you need someone that you can rely on when the other team has a 2-on-1. When Austin Matthews has that point blank, grade A chance, because not everything's going to be easy, and your defensemen are going to let you down in some games. So Leafs to score first. Would you argue Leafs first period? I'll tell you one thing that I love looking at with Leafs and Habs matchups is first period over. Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. These guys are juiced up. No matter what anybody says, certain games mean more to teams than other games do. They play 82 games a year. I mean, look at the NFL, look at the NBA. It applies to the NHL. Battle of Alberta, Calgary versus Edmonton. I don't care where they are in the standings every time they play. It's a big game for those two teams, and we can go across the league as far as that's concerned. So over 1.5 in the first period. So how about a first goal of the game for you from the Leafs, and then the Habs tie it up to make it 1-1? How's that sound?
That's fine. And I mean, Juraj Slafkovsky has scored Montreal's first goal in back-to-back games. So he's on the heater. I think Oliver Kapanen leads the Canadiens with 5 first goals. And I believe he did score the first goal of the game, the last time that these two teams met, that was a shorthanded goal, if memory
Yes.
serves me correct.
Good
Yeah,
memory.
so that game on October 8th, Kapanen did score the first goal. It was not for Montreal, not the first of the game, but he did score the first goal.
And one thing I love looking at as well is the power play points.
Yeah.
Right now for this Montreal Canadiens team, they're so top heavy. I hate to say it, but Demidov's playing well. You've got Kapanen playing well, but there's no bottom six help right now. That's the issue. Joe
Right.
Veleno, what are you getting from Joe Veleno? Josh Anderson, not much from him. Brendan Gallagher, God bless Brendan Gallagher, but he is definitely past his time. And unfortunately, the couple year rebuild that this Canadiens team's gone through has taken time off Gallagher's career. You hate to say it. So the power play point props for the Montreal Canadiens are something that I've been looking at. If you want Suzuki to get a point, forget about laying $2 when you can get him to get a power play point at plus money, or Lane Hudson or Uri Slavkovsky and some of these guys. So I do like looking at that. That's one of those ones, Jonathan, where I do look forward overall in this game, though, to seeing where the number ends up. Obviously, you mentioned Hildeby. That is a factor. But, nobody's talking about the fact that the Canadiens are injured, too. And I know I'm going long on this because I'm a fan. But Caden Gooley, Patrick Laine, Alex Newhook, Kirby Dach, and you know who they miss the most, I'd say, out of all those guys on the forward group, at least I'll say? It's not Laine and it's not Dach. Newhook was having the best year of his career. He really was.
Yeah. Yeah. And, another way you could attack it, and you're look, if the Canadiens are going to score a power play goal, it's likely that it's going to be Suzuki or Caulfield that are going to get a point. But in general, what I've been doing, like for instance on Friday night, in the Dallas San Jose game, I played just Dallas over half a power play goal at minus 130. And what I'll do, like I look, Dallas, the number one power play, especially at home, they're at 40%, and they're playing a San Jose team that's 28th on the penalty kill. So if you don't want to target a specific player for a power play point, I know DraftKings is one site that if you go into their goal scorer section, you scroll down to the bottom, you can find a team to score a power play goal, and anywhere from usually about even money to, well, in this Dallas case, it was minus 130. But that's another thing that I've found that's been very successful is if you can find a matchup of a team with a really good power play against a team with a bad penalty kill, that's the way to approach it. Or I haven't seen if that market, like the LA Kings, would be a team that you want to bet under one power play goal, because I think they're now like 1 for 28 on the power play.
Any goals from them are 5-on-5. They might have more shorthanded goals lately than they do actually on the power play. Kings team.
And to that point, so the Colorado Avalanche can be the first team since the Ducks in 2013-14 to lead the league in scoring, but to have a power play in the 20s.
That's kind of weird. It goes to show about the depth that they have. Like, I keep talking about the top guys in that team, but let's be honest, the depth has been very good for that team as well this year.
I just can't believe that their power play is in the 20s. Like, that to me is more that's shocking with all the talent that they have. But
what are they being too selective, or what's the deal with that?
I haven't watched close enough. I'm just looking at those numbers, and that one just kind of stood out for me.
That is really, really weird. That is really, but
so don't play them to score a power play goal is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Who you do play to score a power play goal is the Minnesota Wild. That's a team that has a really good power play, and they've got a lot of talent out there. And the funny thing is they might not even be the team that scores the most, but when they do get power play opportunities, they usually capitalize. So I have had power play points with some of those guys, Matt Boldy, Kirill the Thrill. Those guys are great. Let's look at Nashville and Carolina here, Jonathan. Obviously, this is a hefty price. Tough to try and find a way to beat this one here unless you like the dog. But Carolina, somebody was going back and forth with me yesterday, and I lost the argument because I said Carolina hasn't played since Sunday. They're playing at home. They're going to be ready to go. And the person I was debating with said, Andrew, sometimes that much time off can be a bad thing. And Anderson didn't look good. Let's be honest. He couldn't stop a beach ball last night, or Thursday night, I should say. But at the same time, the team also weren't executing their chances. So is it a tough spot here for Nashville when they got a really angered Carolina team?
Well, to your point, so I played. Look, I will go against Freddie Anderson every day of the week. And if you don't have enough faith in Nashville to beat them, I would look at their team total. First off, Nashville's won 5 of the last 6 meetings against Carolina. They've scored at least 3 goals in all 5 of those wins, and they scored at least 3 goals in 6 of their last 7 against Carolina. So I'll be I'll take a look at who's in goal. If it's Brandon Bussey, I don't know if Kochetkov is ready to come back yet. I know he's back on the ice. But Nashville right now, I mean, they're live and they can score. So what I'll probably do in this one is the national team total over 2.5, and I'll split that with the Nashville money line, and or maybe play, just depending on the number. And I think at worst I split. I can't. It's hard. I can't back Carolina at this price, based on, especially with the history. With these two teams. And look, they beat them both. Nashville won 5-2 and 3-1 against Carolina last year. And I will tell you, in listening to the interviews with some of the interviews lately with the Nashville players, like they're at least what they're saying publicly is they like that as a group. They like each other and they're playing hard for each other. Look, I'm not a big, I bet Carolina to win the division. I still think they're the best team in the division, but I can't back them at this price with their goaltending.
Yeah, for me, it'd be over or pass. I think I look at this one and I think Nashville, despite the game they're coming off of being relatively low scoring, I still think their offense is starting to get better. They're producing more. The analytics provide that information to us as well. And Carolina, sometimes I look at a team like Carolina and I say, when they're off a game like they're off of, they're going to respond with defense. I kind of compare them sometimes to Winnipeg, but I think their offense is going to show up in this one against Nashville because Nashville gives up shots. It's a matter of if their goaltending can save them.
Right.
We've talked about that with some of the younger teams this season, but I do think the over is in play. So it is kind of funny, though, when you look at this number, just looking at odds logic right now, looking across the board, you've got a 5.5 as the opener. Then it skipped to a 6 at a lot of spots, but it's minus 250 average price, average 240, 250. So you're thinking, okay, so you're going to give me a minus 250, but an opening number of 5.5. What do they expect? Nashville to do nothing here? I think it takes 2 to tango with an over, and I think both teams will contribute here. So I'll take the over in this one.
Yeah, and look, Carolina only knows how to play one way. I mean, they don't, like, that's to their detriment. I mean, that's the one thing that bothers me with Rod Brindamore is that he doesn't adjust his team's style of play. They just try to wear you down, and Nashville's been able to handle that full court press.
And I just think that with Carolina, that's why Rantanen didn't work out. That's why some of these free agents aren't working out.
What a terrible. Like, why did I ever think that guy would work there?
Yeah.
They can, Carolina can sell it on the fact that, they got a great return with Stankoven and the future draft picks. But for me, my counter to that is that this Carolina team's trying to win now. Like, by the time those draft picks become of any value, like, this group may not be together. So I don't know. I thought it was just a bad move by Eric Tulsky.
Well, and last year, the question was after the playoffs, is Rod the Bod's job in jeopardy right now? Does Brandon Moore have to worry about anything?
I don't think so.
It's a business, though, right? It's a business. You can't just win the same number of rounds every year. The same. Look at the Maple Leafs. They were doing great in the regular season with every coach they had.
But different. Here's why I say different, Andrew. And it's because he's never had a goalie that can take him. I don't think it's necessarily the skill. And while I do criticize him for the fact they don't change the way they play, like if you go back, like when they got eliminated by the Rangers 2 years ago, it wasn't because they couldn't score. It's because Freddie couldn't make a save when he needed
That's
to.
true. That's
You
true.
know, and so I think at the end of the day, until they can solve their goaltending situation, and look, they had Kotkaniemi, your former Canadian teammate, who was playing second line center last year.
Mhm.
He's not a second line center. And Rod talked about it. Like they just didn't have the players that could match up against Florida at the end of the day. So
And if
I don't think
yeah,
it's the coaching. The other bet I bet Carolina both to get knocked out in the second and the third round of the playoffs because they haven't made it to the finals since they won it. I just think that they're built. They're just not built. They just don't have the goalie that can carry them right now.
that is a really good point. That is a really good point because a lot of people looked at their scoring, but there would be some games where the save percentage for their goalie was just so
But
abysmal, it
you
wouldn't
just
help
said it
them out
though
one bit.
earlier when you talked about the Leaf game that Freddie
Yeah,
couldn't stop a beach ball. Like, are you trusting one game on the line? Do you want Freddie Anderson as your goalie?
no.
Do you want Kachekov as your goalie?
As my number 2, maybe,
No,
but
no,
not
is your
number 1.
number one. Do you want
No,
him? Do you want
no,
Brandon Bussey as your goalie?
definitely not.
Okay, so if I'm Carolina, like I'm calling Doug Armstrong and I'm saying, what is it going to take to get Jordan Binnington? Because at least I know that in a big game, Binnington gives me a shot to win. They're not
Absolutely.
going to win with any one of those goalies right now. And the other thing, like I've said to people, take a look at Freddie's contract that he signed in the offseason. 1 year, 2.75 million. Now I know he's 36, but number one goalies don't get a 1 year deal at 2.75.
Tells us all you have to know.
Right.
Tells us everything you need to know what the situation is there with them. But my only counterpoint to you, and I'm just doing this to be devil's advocate here, this might be the most competitive the Metropolitan Division has been in years. Would you argue that that's been one of the weakest divisions
Oh,
in the past little while?
it has, but now New Jersey gets weaker without Jack Hughes. They're a far different team. Now, I'm not an analytics guy, but the analytics do say the Rangers are better than what they've shown, and I hope they
Mhm.
are because I did bet them for both the East to win the East and to make to win the Cup strictly on the number. But Washington is the team to me that they're the ones that have surprised me. I thought they were going to take a step back, and they've done nothing but continue to be what they were last year. And that's good on Spencer Carberry uh, and then Ovi. Continues. He may be what I don't know if we've had a 40-year-old that scored 40 goals, but he's definitely knocking on that door. And I mean, look, he wants to go out with a bang. Like I bet him to score his over under for points this year was 65, which shocked me, Andrew, because he's never scored less than 65 other than the strike or lockout years. He's on a roll right now.
And the Capitals, I think, have done such a great job of building around him and keeping the team good. I
Yeah.
know we're not allowed as sports fans to have second favorite teams, but being from the East Coast in Canada, I've always cheered for the Penguins with Crosby, and it was disappointing to see them fall off. He's got 3 Stanley Cups, and going into this season, nobody really had faith. They get rid of Jake Gentz a little while back, and you're looking around the room and you're saying, okay, who's that guy? Who's that guy? And now you've got McKinnon, Geeky, Crosby, and all these guys the top, and everyone's saying, okay, what's more impressive this year? What's really more impressive? Bedard and Celebrini and these guys doing what they're doing? Or is it Ovechkin and Crosby and those guys doing what they're doing at their age? Because seeing some of these older guys right now, and honestly, if you're Kyle Dubas, you're probably thinking to yourself, man, this is great. I can still build the program up and, not have to worry about selling the farm. But at the same time, I also have a
Yeah,
team of
but
competing
but
right
but
now.
come on, Father Time on well maybe look, Malkin's had a renaissance. There, I mean that to me that's more surprising to me than Crosby, and that's not to take anything away from what Sid has done because it's been remarkable. By the way, Sid, I think it's now 7 first Penguin goals this year. Just
Wow.
something to keep in mind. Um,
What are the prices
and
on that?
usually about 6-1.
Okay.
And then Eric Carlson. I mean, he's been an assist machine. He's got the reverse Cy Young numbers for the Penguins. But the old guys have been far better, and I wonder if if like Sid had this, meeting with the team, especially the vets, and just saying, hey, look, everyone's writing us off. The organization has made it pretty clear that, they're not concerned about making the playoffs. I'm not going out that way. So full marks because Sid's not going to let anybody take, slack off. Like that's not happening. So they've been a great story.
And my take on him, as far as staying or leaving with the Penguins, has always been the same. He's got 3 Stanley Cups. He looked up to his mentor, Mario Lemieux. He's not going anywhere. Unless this team was absolutely driven into the ground and they were a bottom place team, he's staying with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think it's much different if he only had 1 Stanley Cup and the team is horrible, but sometimes the cuts matter. All right, Jonathan, we've been here for 50 minutes now. I don't want to keep you for too much longer. First time doing a show together. I'm going to keep you for close to an hour. I really do appreciate it. Utah, Calgary. Utah put up 7. They had the touchdown plus the extra point. It's one of those things where I lost a couple games in a row on Utah, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to stay off Utah tonight. You know how it goes, and they put up 7 on the board. Of course, they are playing Vancouver on Friday night. We'll see what happens in that one. But any quick thoughts? Utah, Calgary. I mean, Calgary, who would have thought they'd beat the Wild in that one? I did release them because I said, you know what? This is one of those fishy numbers. And you know what it means when you see those fishy numbers. Usually that team wins. But can Calgary win another one here on Saturday night?
Sure. I mean, look, so it's a Vitek Vanacek start because we know that Vejmelka went on Friday night. These two teams met earlier in the year, and I think that was the Devin Cooley game. I think that was his first start for Calgary and was outstanding. And Cooley's been really good. So I wonder if he gets the start in this one on Saturday. You've got a Utah team that's coming off the game against Vancouver. I'm going to try to see if I can quickly pull up their numbers this year on a back-to-back, on the second half of back-to-back. The one thing that I like to do with Calgary games is to take Calgary's alternate team total of under 3.5 and parlay that with someone else. Maybe it's, it could be the LA Kings who can't score, or maybe it's someone's over. Because I think Calgary's now only scored 4 goals or more 5 times this year. I got burned on it in that Minnesota game with the empty netter. But that to me is the way I tend to approach Flames games. Utah this year, Utah 1-4 on the back end of back-to-backs. So this could be a good spot for the Calgary Flames,
especially if Utah wins on Friday night. So we'll see what happens with that, guys. Monitor it, see what happens, because if they win Friday night, in my opinion anyway, that helps your case to go against them the next day.
But I'll tell you, like, I've tracked the numbers. There are teams that are 500 both ways. I will tell your listeners, if you don't know, and your viewers, if you don't know if you want to play against a team on the back end of a back-to-back, it is the Seattle Kraken. They're now 0-17 over the past 2+ seasons on the second half of a back-to-back. 16 of the 17 losses, they've scored 2 goals or less.
Wow. I mean, they're already a pretty boring team, let's be honest. But did you say 0-17?
0-17.
0-17.
Yeah,
wow.
That's now going back 2+ seasons.
Wow. And I'll tell you what, I kind of do lean towards the under in the second half of the back-to-back, which is kind of, people usually look towards scoring, but I like the over for Friday night. So people watching this on Saturday, they're going to either see if I cashed a winner or a loser in Vancouver and Utah. But I think if you see a kind of a crazy wild game on Friday night, maybe you see, Calgary go back to their old ways. I like what you did there. The under 3.5 team total for Calgary, and then pick a player prop or something like that to parlay.
Pick another team total prop, whatever your book allows you to do. But I think like those are teams like, LA's been another team. Now we'll get to the LA game we can get to, I don't know if we want to get to the LA game.
Go right ahead.
So, look, that's a game for me that I'm going to lay off of, because you've got Chicago that already beat LA once. They've got the rare 2-game and back-to-back games in the same city. Don't normally see that. They're actually going to be, Chicago's playing Anaheim on Sunday. And so combined with the fact that, and it's going to be an Arvid Soderblom start for Chicago on Saturday, I just kind of wonder for Chicago if they're almost looking ahead to that Anaheim game. They had that game a week ago in Chicago when they were down 3-0 in the blink, 2-0 in the first minute, 3-0 at the end of one. Stormed back to win 4-3, and Connor Bedard and his good buddy Mason McTavish were trading verbal jabs with one another. I would lay off Chicago on Saturday against LA with the Anaheim game on Sunday. But I can't trust LA. I mean, it's just I
don't like that price for them. That's the problem. They keep getting priced like they're a great hockey team.
Right. I mean, I had Chicago on Thursday night at plus 190. I mean, LA should not be a $2 favorite against anybody. And I'll tell you, they don't play to win. They play not to lose. Like I was at the Capitals game a couple of nights ago, and then I was watching last night. I was watching the game on Thursday night. LA didn't kick it into any type of high gear until they were trailing both times. And I don't get it. And Warren Fogle talked about it after the game on Thursday. This is a very dysfunctional team right now. I can't. For me, that game is a pass.
And the look ahead spot too. People talk about the front half of a back-to-back. Sometimes being like, okay, this is the game to bet on a team, but sometimes that could be the team that's looking ahead to the next game that they're playing as well. So great stuff on that one. When it comes down to it, it's one of those numbers for me where LA, I just can't get after them at that price. Like the team total, the regulation, the puck line, whatever it is. Maybe if Chicago goes up in the first period, I look at a live bet on LA, but I also don't like LA chasing games either. So,
well, you know what? Here's the one thing that would be maybe worth a play is the draw. Because LA is now, the numbers dropped a little, but I think it's now like 46% of their games this year have gone to overtime. Wow. So, if you want to play something with a good plus price, you're going to get the draw, probably around plus 330, plus 320. I would look at, maybe a pizza money bet on the draw.
But we are seeing some regression from some of these teams right now. Look at San Jose, the number of goals they've recently started giving up. Chicago, you mentioned it, no Spencer Knight. And I think that sometimes fans and bettors don't realize how much their team is getting bailed out by goaltending. And, you and I were talking backstage about Anaheim and Lucas Dostal. Like, what a great story this Ducks team has been this year. But you have to take into account the goals saved above expected. Overall, hopefully you can tell I'm a watcher. I love hockey, but I have adopted the analytics a bit more. And the reason why I've adopted it is just because it can kind of back up some theories you're creating by watching. So I'll look at a game and be like, man, really seems like this team was bailed out a lot tonight.
Yeah, but okay. So my pushback would be, Phil Deneau. I only because I was watching. I caught the Kings game last night, and Deneau. I mean, he probably had about 5 or 6 glorious chances. Now his expected goals may have been really high last night, but at the end of the day, the guy hasn't scored. He's got 0 goals this year. I don't care. Like for me, I'm not big on expected goals because tell me what player goes into a negotiation and says, you know what? I know I only scored 10, but my expected goals is 30. And the GM's going to go, yeah, go fly a kite. Like, I don't pay you for expected goals.
Well, Jonathan, sometimes you can use it in a negative way as well, right? I'm not saying I always use it in a positive way. Sometimes I'll look at it and say, their expected goals is this, and they're not doing this, so we shouldn't be backing them either. But what I like using it the most is the goaltenders. That's what I'm saying. This year, I use it the most in the goaltenders because I'm looking at the numbers and I'm saying, okay, what are the Hawks this year if it wasn't for Spencer Knight? And I know,
I see what you're saying.
It's I know that you can't always live in that fantasy world because that's not reality. But when it comes down to it, Spencer Knight's not going to make 15 grade A saves every game. And so all of a sudden you start, and you talked about it with Lucas Dostal before the show with me, where you lose that goalie that's making big saves. And all of a sudden it's not like, oh, wow, this Ducks team is so good. It's like, wow, we have a really good goalie as well. That's more so what I'm saying. So how I rate the Chicago team with or without Spencer Knight is a massive difference compared to a lot of other teams.
Yep. Wouldn't you just take a look at what the results were when Soderblom's in net? I don't need expected goals to tell. Like if they're
No,
if
no,
he's
yeah,
if he's
yeah, for sure.
constantly giving up 3 goals a game, then I'm going to start, or 4 goals a game. Then I'll just keep betting team totals, let's say, as you were talking about earlier, and get the value there. Like, I don't know. At the end of the day, for me, I'll take the pure result. I understand what you're saying. I mean, it can be a valuable tool in your evaluation. Um,
Trust me, I'm not making the case. Like I am the last guy to be the analytics case of this because trust me, I'm a watcher. Like I work
but
with guys at WagerTalk that on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 to 5 of the sports they watch the most, hockey might be 5, and they're probably only
maybe be
analytics.
6.
But for me, it would exactly. It's 1. But here's an example like Montembeault and Dobish for the Habs. And I know we got to wrap it up. We got a few more games left, but here's what I'll say is Montembeault and this is just from a watching perspective, right? Is you'll see Montembeault go out there and face like 36 shots, a couple grade A's, the defenseman let him down, and he lets in a few goals early on, and social media is blasting him, right? Then Dobish plays the next day. The team gives up 24 shots. He barely faces any grade A's. And then the fans are saying, Dobish is the number one. Dobish is the number one. So, in my opinion, that's where you look at it and say, okay, that's not fair to say because Montembeault was put in horrible positions all night, but the goals against average people are just saying, oh, man, look how many goals against Monty's given up each game.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
Right, but okay, so I'm looking at Montembeault right now. Like, just he's given in the games that he's played, the Canadiens have given up 5, 1, 8, 3, 5, 5. So, as a bettor, I'm going okay. I'm either looking at overs or I'll play the opposition's team total over. Like,
Right.
he may have been hung out to dry. Maybe I don't look at it from whether he should be the 1 or the 1A or the 1B. I'm just looking at strictly from a betting standpoint. I'm going to keep cashing. That's all I care about. What are his numbers as it relates to me winning a bet? I don't care. I guess that's
cash
where
a ticket. Cash a
right.
ticket.
We all want to cash tickets. So am I?
For sure.
He may have been better than the numbers say, but at the end of the day, what is the play to make that's going to win us our bet?
Yeah, of course. And I think that, again, looking at those numbers, we're both on the same page. Like I'm a watcher too. I guess I was making fun of my buddies that are Leaf fans on Thursday night saying,
well, that's easy.
Don't be so proud of yourself because Freddie Anderson was in nets, right? We don't need expected goals against to tell us that he was horrible. He played awful. He was just a bad goalie. All right, we're tight for time.
Okay.
Detroit, Seattle, Minnesota, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Edmonton. 2 or 3 of those games, you've got teams that are playing on Friday night. So feel free to keep it short and sweet. But what do you think?
I'll make it really simple. Detroit, Seattle, over. They've played 9 times against each other. All 9 games have had 6 goals or more. I know there's 5.5 at FanDuel. I'm not sure if it's 5.5 across the board. I'll be on the over on that one. Okay. Winnipeg and Edmonton. Likely to be Thomas Milic in net for Winnipeg. I'll find, maybe it's Edmonton team total over 3.5. I've been trying to put some props together with McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins types of combinations that can get me plus money. But I got Milic in net. I'll take my chances that Edmonton can get over. He can get 4 goals that night, especially with Winnipeg. And what a terrible spot for Winnipeg. I mean, they're on the road for 4 or 5 games. They come home for 1 and have to go back on the road again. I hate when the league does that. I think there's another bad scheduling spot for the Winnipeg Jets. And then the other game we had
Minnesota, Vancouver. That was the other one.
Yeah, the other one. Okay, I would look at Vancouver team total under, and and so you're going to have Wallstat net for the Wild in this one. I mean, Vancouver's struggling big time. Winnipeg, that 4-goal game. I think it was only like the second time this year. I think they've given up 4. I'll take my chances with the Wall of St. Paul that Vancouver team total under, and if it's still too pricey for you, maybe then find a parlay partner. Maybe it's, I don't know if it'd be Calgary against Utah, but maybe find another team total parlay partner that that works for it. But yeah, I don't see Vancouver putting up 3 on Wallstat.
The wall of St. Paul. I mean, and he gets a team second half of back-to-back. How good is he? How good is that guy? And the Oilers could have had him. If the Oilers wanted him,
Oh my
they could have
God.
had him in the draft.
Another brilliant move. Wasn't that? It was Peter Chiarelli, wasn't it?
Peter Chiarelli.
Yeah. So Peter Chiarelli loses out, doesn't take Wallstat, and signs Darnell Nurse to that horrible deal.
I've made fun of a lot of teams for their big 3 or big 4, but the Oilers' contracts on defense right now, it is crazy when it comes to that Oilers team. But man, we've had a lot of games to break down, some great discussions. I hope you and I can talk again. We'll get you on in the new year to catch up on your thoughts, and we'll see if the Ducks are still rolling. One more time, Jonathan, remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, so on Twitter at West Coast Hockey, that's hockey HKY, and then daily at VSIN.com on the NHL page. I have picks out every day, and then I usually live tweet plays during the course of the night.
You're a great follow. On Twitter.
Appreciate
we'll talk more, and we'll try and stay connected. Thanks so much, and enjoy the games. We're in for a really great season.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care. All right, guys, this is the Pre-Scout, and we are here every single weeknight on WagerTalk TV. Thanks so much to Jonathan Davis for joining and checking in, and a great discussion there at the end as how important some of these goaltenders are. One goaltender we know it's not that great is Frederik Andersen. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time right here on WagerTalk TV.